for now we will move forward and we'll go to the SQL operators. So what is an operator in a SQL? So the equals to operator that we are using, the greater than, less than, between, and, or, these are the SQL operators that we are using, which have a reserved meaning in the memory. So you cannot write like between in a SQL statement and expect it to do something else. It will do exactly as what we have discussed, like between roll number 1 to 4. So it's gonna always act as between 1 and 4. Even if I provide right, like even if I write like between 1 comma 4, it won't understand. It will give you an error. See this wiggly line, red wiggly line shows that there is an error in this line. As soon as I make it 1 and 4, actually this is because I did not write select. Star from student, where, let's do R. Now if you will see that line is gone. But what if I do this? That line comes here, right? Because this is syntactically incorrect. So these are some reserved keywords which have some special meaning to the SQL query engine itself, and we cannot expect them to do anything else beyond their scope. And we cannot keep a table name as something else, or as basically you cannot keep a table name with something like between. It won't be allowed. Or you cannot keep a I'd say any alias of the table name as between. So I think I have not told you aliasing, right? Aliasing the name. So let's say Bhargav comes to me and he says that, Shivam, I would like to change, I would like to develop a, it does not have records. Let me first enter one. So Bhargav tells me that, hey Shivam, I need to generate a report where I need to show class, the 8th, as a standard and not as a class. And I do not want to change the column name in the table itself. I would like to keep it as is. Then what are the options that we have? I mean, we have to generate a report, but we do not want to change the column name in the table. Then what do we do? What we can simply do is the class we're gonna write as standard. So now when the output will be generated, class will be aliased with standard by just using the as keyword, and within the table, the column name is gonna remain as is as class, but while the output will be generated, it will be aliased with standard. Let's see how it works. But does the column name changes in the table? No. Column name remain as is, but in the output, the class get aliased with standard by using this as keyword. For everything, we do not have to change the schema itself. We don't have to use alter table and go to the column name and change the column name altogether. We can just alias it and generate the required output and move ahead. I hope that's clear. Any doubts? Now the reason, sorry, I think I forgot. The reason I showed you that is we cannot have this class as between. Now let's say when I do this, it gives me an error because it's a reserved keyword. That's what we were talking about, right? That these keywords or these particular reserved words in SQL query engine have a reserved meaning and you cannot use it for any other purpose. But yes, if you still would like to go ahead and have the name as and of the column, what you can do is you can put it in the single character, single quotes. Now, whatever is in the single quotes, SQL query engine basically thinks of it as a string and does not literally check the meaning of it and move ahead. If you will see now, the column name has been aliased with and. Similarly, you can go with between. But the reason it only works is this is taking it as a string, a string of character and nothing else, and it loses its reserved name. I hope we are clear. Now, there are these different type of operators that we have: arithmetic operators, comparison operators, logical operators, and then there's some other operators as well. I'd call them clauses, but they are getting used interchangeably nowadays as operators or clause. Any doubts so far? No, awesome. This is the assignment that I would like to provide you. I think yesterday also, I think I gave you an assignment. I'm not sure how many of you can you answer in the chat box? How many of you have done that particular assignment? Just a yes or no would suffice. No one has done it. Okay, but like the reason behind you and you're not doing it is like you did not get time. Was it too easy, or what was it? Like, were you facing any issues, or the environment was not set up just as simple as that? For me, environment setup was issue. Okay, no worries. I mean, you can do that. These assignments are pretty easy. I am not somehow able to uh, paste the screenshot in the chat window. Can you send PDF post class? I think I can do that. I'll do that. Let me check if I can share this because this PDF has ended. This particular session has ended. I'll just show you the delete drop table command and we're good with this. I'll try to share it with you right away. There is no option. Actually, I'd ask Abhishek to share this PDF with you after the session. Drive link where instructions share files from each session. Sure, I'll check with Abhishek and ask him to provide you this particular PDF. Then you can take up the assignments and I think we can even go ahead from there. Now let's see the final command that we have and let me delete all of this. Let's go with drop table and the table name. Now this time what happens is the data will be deleted and the schema will be also deleted. The table name will be gone from here. Everything will disappear when we drop the table because we are basically deleting the database object itself, the table object itself. Now when I refresh this, the table is gone. I hope we are good. Let me open up the next session PDF. Yep. Let's start with normalization. So how many of you have heard of normalization before? No one? Yes, Mayank says yes. Mayank, can you unmute yourself and tell me what exactly do you know about normalization?
Yeah, basically how we organize the table in the database and how we create different tables like primary key, foreign key, so that our tables are linked as well, and one table also not have all the information. So I have very basic knowledge. Yeah.
No worries. Actually, what you said is correct. But yeah, it misses some part of it. I'll tell you how and why. So Normalization is basically an exercise to split or to basically bifurcate an existing table into multiple table to achieve the following target: eliminating data, basically elimination of data redundancy, and ensuring data dependency makes sense. These are the two essential reasons why we do normalization. Correct? Now, what exactly is normalization? What are the different types of normalization? We're going to discuss in detail in upcoming slides. First, normal form. Basically, this ensures that there are no repeating groups of data and that there is a primary key. This is the first and foremost basic form of normalization. Then the upcoming normalization would seem redundant to you, but yeah, that's how it is, and it has been for a while now. Second normal form, basically it says that all the rules from the first normal form needs to be followed, and there should not be any partial dependency on any of the columns. Third normal form says it should follow all the rule of second normal form, and table should have all the relationships. And then there is a fourth normal form, and then there is a BCNF, that is what we call boy squad normal form, which we use in our now day-to-day world of database. Now I'll show you with an example how does these different normal forms work. So you're able to see this particular table, right? Where we have RAM and then the two numbers, and yeah. So now as per the first normal form, what it says that we should have each record for an entry, and we should not have this kind of I'd say clubbed records as per the first normal form. It should be a single valued attribute. A relationship in first normal form, if every attribute in that relation is single valued attribute. Hence, what we do is, in order to just convert this particular table into a first normal form, we just simply change this particular entry into two different entries and create a single valued attribute. The way second normal form works is, take this as an example and think of it as there is a student number column, there is a course number column, and then there is a course fee. Now, if you have to split it in such a way so that there can be two tables and those tables can be related to each other. Now, let's say there is course 1, 2, 4, 3, 1, 5, right? If you will see here, course 1 will always have 1,000 rupees fee. Then course 2, 3, 4, 5 has different values. So what we have done is we have split it into two tables. One is the table of student and which course he has taken, and then the other table will be course and its fee. C1, C2, C3, C4, C5 and their respective fee, and then the student and which course they have taken. Now, if you will join this particular these two tables on the course number, can you get this particular table? Yes or no? Yes, awesome. This is the second normal form, as simple as that. Now, what the third normal form says, let's say you have this particular example. Now, in this, if you are able to see that country, student country will always have one column. Has a column in which all the records have the same values. Now, this creates a data redundancy. What we can do is we can split student country into a separate table and then join that table with the student table on a particular key and yield the same result. That would reduce the data redundancy, and we just need to have student country value 1, India there only once, whereas here we have in all the records. So let me give you an example. Let me open up Excel. Let's say there is student ID and the name 1, 2, 3. Alice, Bob, Mark. Country, let's say USA. Now you will see USA is occurring thrice here. But what if I just simply switch or split this particular table into two. Now, if you will see, if we join on the basis of country ID, this student and this country table, we can yield the same result, right? We are following all the rules of second normal form plus the third normal form as well. Which it says that a relationship is in 3NF if at least one of the following condition holds. X is a super key and Y is a primary attribute. X is a super key and Y is a primary attribute. Sorry, this is X is a super key and Y is a primary attribute. This is how it holds. I hope we are clear. Any doubts on this normalization? So you can, I mean, there is no, from interview perspective, no one is going to ask you what is first normal form, second normal form, third normal form, fourth normal form, or the Boyce Court normal form. What they're going to ask you is, are you aware of the concept of normalization? Why we do it? How we do it? I hope these three questions are clear. I'm randomly going to pick one name. Bhargav, are you clear on this? CNF, please explain again. Yeah, so redundancy should be removed. Let me just open up that. Redundancy should be removed. If you will see here, here in this particular table, the student country India is. Would you be able to explain using concept of functional dependencies? This is a functional dependency actually. The way it works is, so it's not just about this particular column. This is a functional dependency. I'll explain you how. So if you will just read through this, you will understand why. What we are trying to do actually. So there is a candidate key, this student number, which we can use to uniquely identify the number of records. Correct. And the reason we are saying that we uniquely identify is because if you will say student name is Ram in both the cases, but the age is different. Plus the student state is different, but the country is same. Correct. Now, if what else we can do is we can have a student. So we are having a state country table where state and country are in one particular table, and we are splitting it. And then there is a separate table of student details where we'll have student name, student number, name, and age. The way we can do it is as simple as the simplest example that you can understand is which I gave you in an Excel. Suppose, can you please share this link you're showing? Sure. Actually, the more column you take, the more complex it gets, and that's why I was taking only the 3 columns within the Excel. Essentially, the concept is that you need to split the table in such a way so that the no column has a redundant value, and when you combine the splitted tables, you get the original result set. And when you see the tables differently, they are related to each other on a basis of certain logic, and which was in our case the country ID when we were talking about the 3 columns, and in this particular case it can be state. I hope that makes it clear. Any further questions on this? Okay, Let's move forward. Now we have constraints. Anyone tell me what are constraint? I mean, what does the name suggest? Basically, a constraint are nothing but the rules enforced on the column of a table. Let's say Mayank tells me that, hey, Shivam, we have the roll number of the students and each student will have a unique roll number. It cannot be duplicate. It cannot be null, and it has to have some value, and that to a unique value. When he enforces such kind of conditions on a column, this is what we essentially call as constraint. These are in SQL, we call them as constraint. And by using these different constraint, we enforce these rules, logic on a certain set of columns of a table, or even the multiple columns of a table. There is no limitation to that, that only one particular column in a table can have constraint or one kind of constraint. One column can have many constraint, and multiple columns in a table can have different constraints, even the same also. But it is not highly suggested to have same constraint on all the columns. I mean, certainly you can have not nullable to all if you are sure that you are not never gonna get a null record in any of the columns. But yeah, otherwise it's not highly suggested. Different constraints that we have is primary key, unique, not null, default, check, and foreign. As the name suggests, these constraints do what they say. Even this one liner would be, I guess, enough for all of these constraints. Let's go into the detail. So not null constraint. Basically, by default, a column can hold null values, right? The Satish earlier when asked in the session that does character type has a by default null value, and then I showcased him that no, irrespective of data type, whichever column is it, if it is not non-nullable, then it can, I mean, the default value of that column is null. So when we put a not null constraint, then the value of that column cannot be null, and it has to have some value. Null values are not allowed in that particular column. That's how it's gonna be. Let's check some examples. We gonna create a new table, employee. Now, if you will see, I have put not null constraint, default constraint, unique constraint, and what else? Primary key has been also mentioned, correct? Come on. What happened? Okay, yeah. Primary key has also been mentioned. And even a check constraint is also there. First, I'm gonna create this table. I'll enter the records. So for not null, if you will see here, cannot insert the value null into column name. So if you will see in the first record itself, I have not given any name. I directly skip to the address. Then the city, if you will see, since I've mentioned the column names here, I'm providing the column names in that particular sequence, and there is no name here. And when we were creating this table, we put that name cannot be null, cannot be left as null, right? So what's happening here is when I'm trying to write a null record in place of name column, it's giving me an error. This is how a constraint is enforced onto a table. Any questions for not null constraint? Anyone? No. Awesome. Let's move on. So now we have default constraint. Default constraint says that if you do not provide any value for this particular column, let's say since we have implemented default constraint on salary, if we do not provide salary of any person or any employee, then by default his salary would be assigned as 5,000. Let's see if we have default constraint applied. So we have applied default constraint as Delhi here. In the city, if we are not supplying any value from outside for the city, then by default its value would be Delhi. In this particular insert statement, if you will see, city is not there. Let's see what is the for Charandeep Singh, what is the default city. Charandeep Singh, we have not supplied any city, but still we have Delhi as the city. Okay, makes sense, right? Let's move on. I'm not using alter table statement, as what it does is basically it changes the constraints of that particular column, and either we are trying to remove the constraint and enter the value inside the table. I would like you to do this exercise on your own and let me know in case if you face any issues. Let's move on to the next constraint that we have, that is unique constraint. The unique constraint provides a unique value to a column. And let's see if we have used unique constraint anywhere. We have used unique as a phone number. If you will see here, unique phone numbers, there are no repeating phone numbers here. Let's try to add a repeating phone number actually. Let's take this record and I'm gonna change it to Bob Singh. Let's keep the address same. City is Delhi. We'll keep the phone number same. Now let's see if this works. I mean, ideally, now what's gonna happen? Can someone tell me? If I try to enter this particular record, what will happen? Will we get an error or will it succeed? Let me check if anyone has joined afterwards also. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 3 folks has not joined. I think that's fine. I'd say Gurpreet, can you tell me what's gonna happen if I will try to execute this statement? Gurpreet, are you there? Okay, let's move on to Bhargav. Bhargav, can you tell me what will happen if I will execute this statement? Am I audible?
We're using chat to answer.
Error, sorry?
We are putting answers in chat.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I think error, Gurpreet says error. Bhargav also says error, not unique. Hari says primary key error. Correct. It's not, I mean, Hari, it's not going to be a primary key error since we haven't declared phone number as a primary key. Violation of primary key constraint. We have declared, is it? Okay, so yeah, I forgot to tell you. Whenever you set a unique constraint, it works as a primary key. And what Hari was saying was right. Like it works as a primary key constraint. And with respect to that, we get a primary key violation as well as a unique constraint violation. So this is a general error that you get whenever you try to insert a duplicate value. And then because it will be in the primary key employee ID violation, it's giving us that particular error as well. Now let's remove this. Which one was it? Bob Singh, right? Remove this. So we have gone to unique constraint. It says, I mean, you can simply just try to change the unique constraint, try to add the, so the way alter table works is you can add a constraint or you can even remove a constraint. So it doesn't matter. If you have forgotten to add a constraint on a table, you can use alter table and add a constraint. Or if you have by mistake added a constraint and but you would like to remove it afterwards, you can again use alter table and remove a constraint also. The way you can do it is use keyword add constraint and then add the constraint, and then just use drop constraint and drop the constraint itself. I hope that's clear. And then there is the most important constraint that we have is a check constraint. The check constraint enables a condition to check the value being entered. I'll show you if we have the check constraint. We have check here, right? We are checking that DOB should always be greater than 1st Jan 2000. What if this one has everything, right? EID, name, address, or I'll take this again. And let's match all of the constraints. Let's make it 34. Baldeep Singh will become Bob. Address will change. Yeah. Phone number, I'm going to change it to 99. Let's say we don't have any constraint on email, right? It's fine. And then I'm going to make it 1st Jan 2000. I'd say 2001. Let's run this. This is what we get as an error when we are trying to violate a check constraint. The insert statement conflicted with the check constraint. The conflict occurred in database this, and I hope we are clear on the check constraint as well. So, I mean, you can use check constraint for many different purposes. Can anyone give me one example, such as where you would use check constraint? Any example at all? Like, if you remember the one I explained, like roll number cannot be null, age will usually be less than 100. Correct. We can do that if we are 100% sure that there is no one. Oh, correct. Actually, what Bhargav is saying is correct. We can put a constraint on age because being an employee, you cannot be certainly be of 99 age and working, right? You'll be retired by then. So there is no possibility of an employee being over an age of 100. I mean, even we can have a lesser number as 80 or something. But yeah, or we can put age greater than 18 for certain cases. Correct. Being an employee, you need to be greater than, I mean, at least be of 18 in order to be an employee anywhere or be employed by an employer. So there's these kind of constraints we can put in our day-to-day life while we are entering the table. And the reason we use this constraint is, if you will see in our transactional system, say if you remember yesterday we were discussing OLTP, OLAP. So in transactional world, sometimes by mistake, we enter these incorrect values. And in order to avoid those inconsistency among the database and to get the value, I mean, to get the correct values inside the database whenever it is entered, we put these constraints so that if someone is trying to enter a value out of that bound, out of that range, it gives them an error that, hey, like you cannot be an employee who has a age less than 18, or you cannot be an employee who has an age greater than 100. These kind of constraint will ensure this data integrity, that we have the right data set in our tables in a transactional system. I hope that is clear. Let's move on to primary key constraint, which I think Hari has mentioned earlier, that it will give a primary key error. So a primary key, can anyone tell me what is a primary key? I'll go ahead. So basically think of it as, in a table, if you can define a particular record column that's used to uniquely identify each row in table. Correct. That is correct actually. Column that's used to uniquely identify each row in a table. That's correct. So if you can identify each record in a table using a certain column, that column is called a primary key, is what Bhargav is saying and is what I was also saying. But now I have one question, Bhargav. Let's say if I put a unique constraint, then also each record in that table of that particular column will have a unique value, right? We will still be able to define it uniquely. Then does that column will become a primary key also? You can unmute yourself instead of typing. You can just say it. Bhargav.
I think we can use that unique column as well.
I'm sorry, Bhargav, your voice is very feeble. Can you come again?
Hello, can you hear
Yeah.
me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm saying that we can use that unique key as well, same as primary key, as in to identify each row. But I believe there are other functions also of primary key that I'm not able to recollect right now.
Okay, no worries. There's one experiment I would like us to do. This Bob Singh, right? We provided him a uh, 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 let's change his age to 1997 again. But we are not going to provide phone number. Let's see what happens. Sorry. Let me show you. Bhargav, are you able to see that in phone? There is a null value now, Bob Singh, although it has unique constraint. This is a challenge with the unique constraint, that it allows null. But the question is, I'm sorry, excuse me. Question is, does it allow null again? It doesn't. Yeah, excuse me. So yeah, I was saying that a unique constraint allows a null in there in its particular field, and that is a problem with the unique constraint, and that's how it is different than a primary key. Once you declare a column as a primary key, it cannot have null. Let's say in this particular case, we have declared EID as a primary key, right? Now, where was Bobson? Yes. Let's put phone back in the picture. And have another, sorry, let's have a phone number. And now what we will try to do is, we will try to have a null here. Cannot insert the value null into column EID. Column does not allow nulls, insert fails. This is the advantage of primary key. If you will see here, we have just simply declared EID as a char5 field, and then later on we have declared it as a primary key. Now, due to this primary key check, what happens is it does not allow null inside it. That's the main difference between a primary key column and a unique column. Another question I have: can primary key? Have you heard of composite key? Is anyone aware of composite key?
Yeah, we can use a combination of 2 or more keys as primary key.
Awesome. Awesome. So what happens is sometimes we do not have a single column to identify each record in a table individually. In that particular case, but we say that if there is a group of columns, let's say 2 column or 3 column or even more, but it should be lesser than the total number of columns within that particular table. So let's take an example of a table with 10 columns, and let's say now you are able to identify each record of that table with the help of 9 or less than 9 columns. Then the group of those columns is called a composite primary key, because using those set of columns you are able to identify each record in the table specifically. Now primary key as a constraint is different, and when we are talking about primary key as a concept is different. The composite key that we are talking about, that is the primary key concept. The primary key here, this what we are talking about is a primary key constraint. You cannot apply primary key constraint on more than one column in a table. Okay, let's move on. Then we have a foreign key. Now what is a foreign key? Earlier, if you remember, we were working on this thing, right? Normalization. We were splitting a table into multiple tables where those tables will be related to each other. We were joining the two tables on some field, on an XYZ field. Now, think of it as the column which we are using to join the two tables. One column of the main table on which you are joining with the other column of the main column of the other table is called foreign key and primary key. Let's see with an example. I'll show you. Let's do the now let's say you want the customer details from, you can get the customer details from this table and customer address detail from this table. Now you would like to join, you can join these two tables, customer and customer address, on customer ID, right? And get the whole data. Now customer ID in this table will become the foreign key, and customer ID in this table will become the primary key. Or the vice versa also, whichever you are considering the main table, the column on which you will be joining with the other table will become the primary key of that column, and then the other table that you are joining upon with, the main column of that table will become the foreign key. Now why this primary key foreign key concept do we have? Can you please explain again? Sure. I'm treating sales lt.customer as a main table. Okay. This is my main table. Now I would like to get the address detail. So now if you will see customer ID, this is my main table, right? Customer ID in this particular table is my primary key, and customer ID in this particular table will become my foreign key, because this is my main table, this is my additional table, and I'm trying to join upon these two tables on the basis of customer ID. Now my main table customer ID is called primary key, and my additional table customer ID will become the foreign key in that case. But if you will treat this table as the main table, then this table customer ID will become the primary key and this table customer ID will become the foreign key. Bhargav, does that explain better? Or if you have any doubt, I mean, you can unmute yourself and let me know where exactly you're stuck.
Uh, so the customer ID in the second table, the one is
Correct.
below, that is foreign key, and based on that we are going to do the join, right?
Correct. On the basis of customer ID, we are going to do that join.
Okay.
Okay. Now, another thing that we need to know about the foreign key is uh, do the foreign key now, but we were talking about here, right? This customer ID primary key and customer ID foreign key. This is a concept primary key of this is a concept of primary key and foreign key. But the foreign key that we are talking about here is the constraint. This foreign key is we are talking about is the constraint, and the foreign key constraint works here is a bit tricky and is very good actually. Now let's say you enter a customer detail in this particular table, okay, but at the same time you do not enter a corresponding record in customer address table. Now it will give you an error. Why? Because you have a foreign key constraint on this table that if a record exists in this table, then it has to exist in this table also, in the customer address table. Otherwise, you will be losing out on the information. Make sense, Bhargav?
Yes.
Okay. This is why we use foreign key constraint in order to ensure data integrity, so that let's say you gave your HR the certain information, you have given the whole information, but she forgot to enter your address detail because it was not there in that table. Then in that case, foreign key constraint will kick into place and it will let her know that, hey, you need to add address detail of this employee also. You cannot just miss out on that. That's how the foreign key constraint would help you in order to ensure that all the data for all the employees exist in a table. If you will see, you are able to see like PK and FK is written here, right? This shows that it is a primary key and a foreign key. Similarly, if you will see here, FK is not written here because it's not a foreign key. It is the base table and this is your additional table. So what does that mean? That in this particular, if a record exists in this table, it needs to be existing in a corresponding record needs to be there in this table, but the vice versa cannot be true. I mean, uh, think of it as there can be a customer detail without address, but there cannot be an address without customer. Make sense? Have I confused all of us? Can you give me a yes or no if you have understood, or you have any doubt? A yes if you have understood, a no if I confused you all. Yes, you understood. Okay, Bhargav. Any yes, says Hari. Anyone else? One more yes I need. No one? Only two guys? Okay, yes, awesome. So we understood. Perfect. Let's move on. So remember always remember about, I mean, you can ask your interviewer, you are talking about primary key as a constraint or you are talking about primary key as a concept. And then you can further get into the details of the primary key and the foreign key. Foreign key and primary key, foreign key as a constraint work in a different way, and primary key, foreign key as a concept work in a different way. I hope we understand both the things at the same time, but we can keep both the things separate as well. And whenever someone asks about primary key and foreign key, we're gonna ask them that first question. If someone asks us about primary key, we're gonna ask them like, are you talking about primary key constraint or primary key concept? As simple as that. This is your assignment. I'll be sharing this also with you in today after today's session, and then you can work over the week and get back to me in the next week. On the next weekend, we're gonna start with the assignment doubts first. In case if you have any doubts, you can discuss that with me first, and then after that we're gonna start the session. Another thing I would like to highlight here is feel free to share a screen with me I mean, in case if you are not able to install or set up the environment, or you are doing something but it's not working the way we have expected, the way we have been, the way we have learned. So you can just share screen, show us what is the issue that you're facing, and all of us can learn from it. Do not think of it as one of those classes where you're not allowed to share screen and get your doubts resolved. Uh, so we can all learn from each other, and if one of us is facing any issues, I mean, there is a good chance that others might be facing the same issue, and it's better to discuss it rather than to struggling individually and wasting all of our time individually. Okay, so discuss it in case if you're stuck anywhere. Let's come on to clauses again. So if you remember, I was talking about like between clause we have discussed, and then there is in. Actually, in is a good clause. Let me go to this one. I like in. Now, let's say Bhargav came to me and he said that Shubham, I want to get the details of the customer IDs, which customer IDs in. He gives me the specific customer IDs, such as he's telling me 1, 2, 6, 8, 12, and 15. I do not want customer ID between 1 to 15. I want customer IDs, details of customer IDs of these specific customer IDs. So 1, 2, 6 exist, 8 does not exist, 15 does not exist. Hence we don't have. So I can use this in clause, provide the specific customer IDs and get the details for the same. And that way we're not going to use between clause. In such cases, we're going to use in clause, because right now, whenever we are using in clause, we'll be specifying certain values and we are not looking over a range. So think of it as in maths or in the statistics, we have discrete values and continuous values, right? So you can use in when we have discrete values, and you can use between when we have continuous values. Something like that. Okay. Then let's move to like clause. Like clause we have already studied yesterday. Then we had count clause. That's a good one. So now Bhargav told me that, okay, since we are missing 8 and 15, can you tell me how many number of customers do we have? What we're gonna do is we're gonna do a count star and we'll get the number of customers. So in this particular table, sales LT dot customer, we have data for 847 customers. Now this count can be done in many ways and it will yield you the same result. Count 1, let's say count customer ID. This one. Okay. So count is an aggregation function. Also we call it as a clause, we call it as an operator, we call it as a function. Its usage actually varies. In this particular case, if we are using it as just in a simple vanilla form, we can call it as a clause. But when we in future, when we're going to use it with group by and where condition and all of that, then it would be a different scenario. I mean, that it will be used as a function, more of a in the format of a function rather than in the format of a clause or an operator. Let's move on. Then we have a distinct clause. Perfect. Bhargav has asked me that, Shubham, I would like to get the name, first name, I think. Sorry, what do we have here? LT customer. Yeah, first name, right? He is looking only for the distinct first name of our customers. I said, sure, we can get it. This is how we can get it. This is the list of distinct first name that we have. If you will see, just things to be noted here is we have 315 distinct customer name, but we have total 847 customers. So I mean, this is the way you can check that there are duplicate customer names. At least first name is duplicate for a lot of customers. Now, can we club these distinct and count? Anyone? I'll show you. So I'll show you one interesting thing now. Count, and let's do first name. Count first name. So, let me do a select star this table. No. Yeah, I mean, it's not called a nested query. It will be like a nested clause, Bhargav. But for that, I need to have a right example, show you that in which case we would do what. I think, yeah, I can show you this. What if I do this? If you will see here, when I do a count of distinct first name, it gives me this number, right? 315, which we were getting here also. So this is not a nested query. It will be a nested clause or a nested function. This is how you can get count of distinct something, anything that you want. Now, if this, now how can you check? Let's say I do not give you this information of any table. Like I do not tell you that customer ID is primary key and you are not able to see this information of any table. Then how do you check which column is a primary key? So you can use this particular technique where you can check what is the number of so we can certainly say that now count of customer and distinct first name is not same, hence first name is not primary key. But what I would do this, what if I would do this? This proves us that customer ID is the primary key. Why? Because distinct and normal count of a column is same, then it is uniquely present in all the records and hence can be used to identify each record individually and would work as a primary key and suffice our requirement. So this is one of the ways you can identify like which column is a primary key in a table. I hope it is clear. I need 2 yeses at least. In case if you have any doubt, please let me know. This is an important concept. So we should all be aware of this, how to identify a primary key if and when we are not given about it. Awesome. Now this count star, what does it mean? And count one, what does it mean? Count one basically means we are talking about first column of the table, customer ID. Now let's say if I will give you this count first name, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I give count 4 and I do a distinct of this. So answer should be 315, right? 315 or 351, something like that. Let's check it from here. So 315 should be the number now, if what I'm saying is correct. Okay. Distinct does not work with this. This is a good thing to know. But then I think, okay, we need to provide the column name, but it's gonna have the same number. Okay. So essentially what exactly it does is 1, 2, I mean, whatever the column. So think of it as each column is given a specific number starting from 1 to the end, n. So now whenever you write count 1, count 2, count 3, it actually count the number of records in that particular column. And the reason being we cannot use distinct with it is we cannot identify something like this with the help of column number. But yeah, you can certainly query and it will always yield you the same result. Count 1 and count star. You can use any. What does count star mean? Count star is basically taking all of the columns and counting the records with respect to all columns. So this is gonna generally take more time as compared to this. And this will take same time as compared to this, mentioning a column, any column. I hope that is also clear. Let's move on to the order by clause, group by clause, and having clause. In the next one, we'll start in our next class with order by, group by, and having clause. These are actually very important, and we'll spend quite some time on these. Anyone has any doubt in today's class or today's session? I'd say, like when I say today's, I mean the second PDF that we went through and the first one, even the yesterday. Any doubts at all? Any questions? All clear. Awesome. I would, I'd say you can leave the assignment number 4 in the next session. When we complete this particular one, then you can go for the assignment 4. Till the time you can complete all the 3 assignments, and I'll ask, I'll check with the Vishek and I'll share this PDF with you so that you can work on these 3 assignments. What I would like to request you all is please install either Azure Data Studio or SSMS in your system along with SQL Server Express Edition, and try to restore the backup. I'll share the link again. Restore the backup, either this 2019.oltp version or the lightweight version. You can install both. You can install one. You can install all the 3, whichever you like, but at least have one in order to follow through the assignment while we are doing in the class. That will give you much more exposure and give you much more clarity to what we are doing, why we are doing. And also you can ask me the question on the at the moment itself within the class. And meanwhile, over the week, if you have any questions, please jot it down, and we can start our next session with the questionnaire, a Q&A session, and then we'll discuss if you have any doubts with respect to the assignments. We can discuss the assignment first after that, and then we'll start with the rest of the sessions. Is that okay?